Hello and thank you for joining us on Newsweek, where we highlight some of the biggest stories that made the headlines recently. I am Jacinta Agochukwu. This week, the Department of State Services, DSS, confirms that a section of the political class was planning to install an interim government. Top legal experts and political scientists warned that the move is dangerous, unconstitutional, and an invitation to anarchy. Also this week, the embattled national chairman of the People's Democratic Party, Chief Iyorchia Ayu, has stepped aside from office as the party reverses the suspension of a former Senate President Pius Saim, former Ekiti State Governor Ayo Fayose, and former Katsina State Governor Ibrahim Shema. And later on the show, the newly elected governors-elect listed their areas of priority as they receive certificates of return. While some pledge to tackle insecurity, poverty, and unemployment, others say they would instill transparency and accountability in governance. All the details in a moment. Stay with us. Well, we'll begin with politics, where earlier in the week, the Department of State Services, DSS, confirmed that the section of the political class was planning for an interim government in order to truncate the result of the recently concluded general elections. Spokesman for the DSS, Dr. Peter Afunaya, who disclosed this in a statement, said the agency had identified some key players in the plot, but did not give the names of the masterminds. The agency said the planners of the interim government had already held several meetings during which they weighed many options to actualize their plot, including sponsoring endless mass protests across Nigerian cities, securing a warrant to declare a state of emergency or a court injunction to stop the inauguration of the executive and the legislature at the federal and state levels. It declared its support for the president and commander-in-chief in his avowed commitment to his free handover, and we assiduously work in this direction. Well, I've got two gentlemen joining me to discuss this topic. I've got Olufemi Lawson, Executive Director, Center for Accountability. Welcome.
Good evening.
And also I've got Olushola Jegede, he's a lawyer. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let me begin with you, Mr. Jegede. Nigerians have been worried since the DSS mentioned the plot for an interim government. And the question Nigerians are asking is, who in their right minds will make or even think of an interim government?
Well, let me begin by saying that it is an unconstitutional move if anybody is planning to do that. But the DSS, they didn't give more details than the fact that they had intelligence. Mm-hmm. They had information that is pointing towards that directions. And, you know, the intelligence when someone might not be an evidence, maybe that is why the DSS have not been making any move per se to see whether they want to identify people who are linked to this kind of a plot. However, the law is very clear. The law of Nigeria is clear that Section 1 of the Constitution stipulates clearly that no other person shall take over the government in Nigeria other than the way stipulated in the Constitution. And that procedure stipulated in the Constitution has been followed by INEC, and there's now a president-elect. So if anybody is trying, by virtue of our Constitution, there's no vacuum in government at any time. If you are planning interim government, it's either you are planning to remove the government of the President Muhammadu Buhari, or you are planning to remove the government of President-elect Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu on May 29, because by that money, he will become the president of Nigeria. So at what point do they want to force this kind of a interim government? And whichever plan, whichever way they might be going through it at any time, it will definitely amount to treason and is not provided by the law of Nigeria. There is no way anybody can bring in any kind of interim government at this stage. There's no provision for it whatsoever. There's no vacuum. Even when the election was, even if a clear winner is not in March in the first election, the Constitution has provided for a rerun. But a clear winner was in March in the election that has been declared by INEC, and the losing candidates, they have their right in court to ventilate their grievances, and they are already in court. So there's no provision whatsoever. And if anybody is trying to now think of an interim government, it's as if they are thinking of treason. And with time along the line, we talk about what is even treason is all about. Because any plot of interim government is either I want to be treasonable felony or treason on itself, if it's carried out.
All right, let me come to you, Lufemi Lawson. Why do you think DSS is not mentioning names rather than just hinting on the plot? Why do you think they're not mentioning names and they're not making any arrest already?
I think not mentioning names of those behind this purported plan is not really fair enough, especially when we have seen the public reactions that have trailed that statement credited to the DSS. And one thing we must also understand is that the DSS is not a fire brigade organization that should come out in such a manner without doing its due diligence. I want to believe the DSS, before coming out to make this public proclamation, has done its work to the extent that it has identified this plot and those behind it. And just like he said, like Shochola said, you see, whatever is out of the constitutionally laid down democratic process of electing leaders in this country today becomes an act of treason. So is DSS now, trying to conceal the identities of people who want to, violate the Constitution, who want to use illegal route to elect or to select, a new set of leaders for the country, where there is still an existing legitimate authority under the incumbent president, which will elapse on May 29. So I think the DSS at this point must stop acting in a fire brigade approach and rather behave like a core national intelligence organization that must have its facts, that must have its details before coming out with such position. And I think Nigerians are more interested in knowing these people who must be termed as the enemy of democracy if truly there are plans to, institute an illegal and alien, system of government into our democracy.
All right, I'm coming back to you, Mr. Jegede. Opposition parties, they've reacted. People like Atiku Abubakar of PDP is saying this is the plot, the interim government plot allegation is a plot to arrest the opposition, and is challenging the DSS to, start naming the people they believe is doing this. What do you make of this challenge?
Yeah, like Mr. Alvin already said, they have to have probably coming out on national stage. They have to have DSS have to have tried to make an attempt and name people behind this plot, and even probably make an arrest. And that is why the Vice President, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, is saying that could it be a plot? You are having a plot within a plot. That could it be a plot to actually stop them, to arrest the opposition from exercising their own right of continue to litigate on these matters, even to have some peaceful protest. It is within their right. But then I think what actually made that issue, brought it on a national stage, was the comment made by the Vice President of Labour Party on the fact that they should not swear in Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and they should not constitutionally elected and all those things. And I think that brought that one to a serious national stage. That a lot of people are now thinking, are there some people thinking in this direction? If somebody of his caliber can come on national TV and make those comments, which were just a kind of which were not just facts, which were his opinion. I made it as if it's a fact. It wasn't a fact what he said. And that has traveled far by saying that So, but the opposition, they continue to push back, especially PDP. When you look at a lot of people in PDP, they are the experienced politicians, like Atiku himself, like the Vice President Okowa. I can't, in my mind, I don't think you will ever attribute that kind of statement to them, because they here they are today because of that same process, and they knew the president-elect has emerged, and they knew what follows. But this was the comments of the Vice President, chair candidate of Labour Party, that actually shocked the whole country. And when the opinion of the DSS now came again, and that the actual plot was in there, and people were thinking, could it be true and everything? But you know, DSS, maybe they are trying to not to, like I said, maybe they don't want to actually start bringing people in. But this is a serious plot.
It is.
Because it's a serious crime that could lead to death. You're trying to overthrow a government. This is not what you want anybody to conceal. And maybe the DSS just think, okay, maybe it's on a small level, a small discussion, and they just want to take it out of their mind quickly to let them know we are here. Don't go further. That's what I think. Perhaps the DSS is not trying to make arrests at this stage. I think the issues can be resolved.
All right, gentlemen, we've still got a lot of stories to talk about, but at the meantime, let's go for a short break, and Newsweek continues in a moment. Stay with us. Well, welcome back. It's still Newsweek, where we discuss the biggest stories that made the headlines in the week. This week, embattled national chairman of the People's Democratic Party, Chief Iyorchia Ayu, stepped aside from office earlier in the week. Ayu's decision was in obedience to an order of the Benue State High Court in Makurdi, issued on Monday, which asked him to stop parading himself as PDP national chairman. Consequently, the Deputy National Chairman, North Ambassador Leah Damagun, has stepped in to take over as the party's acting national chairman. The party reversed the suspension of former Senate President Pius Saim, former Ekiti State Governor Ayo Fayose, and former Katsina State Governor Ibrahim Shema from the party. It also lifted the suspension on two other members, Dennis Itiavia from Benue State and Aslam Aliyu from Zamfara State. The referral of the governor of Benue State, Samuel Otom, to 8 disciplinary committee has now been reversed. A statement by the spokesperson of the PDP, Depo Ologunambar, said the party took the decision at the meeting of the National Working Committee, where recent developments in the party were extensively discussed. I still have Olufemi Lawson in the studio and Olushola Jegede to dissect this topic. I'm coming to you, Olufemi Lawson. What do you think of this whole reversal of suspension, especially as the new acting vice chairman or chairman of the party emerged? What do you think of the whole reversal? Well,
one would expect that having come out with what the party came out with in the election, the loss of the election due to the series of crises that engulfed the party before the election, the party will sit back, reassess itself, and begin to work together as a party, because the current development is just another phase in the series of the unending crisis that is engulfing the PDP. It looks so much like the party has not learned from its mistake. The party has not also learned from how, in the past, political parties have found themselves in such circumstances, have ended imploding within itself, and it is not going to be limited at losing elections. There are further consequences that will definitely follow this, because if you look at how fast the fortune of the PDP is degenerating, then you want to be concerned about why, even for the period that it had to resolve this crisis prior to the election, it couldn't. And even after the election, the crisis seems to be unending. Now we are beginning to see suspension, reversal suspension. A lot of agitations are still going on within. Senator Iyorchia Ayu has gone to court. So it is not ending at stepping aside because of the Benue State High Court order. He has also gone to court to challenge that decision. So it looks like the party is not ready to sit together and properly reconcile and move forward as it is. So we may still have more scenarios unveiling itself as far as the crisis within the PDP is concerned. I don't think we have seen any end to it yet, the way it looks.
Of course, with the idea of the G5 governors, do you think without the issue of this G5 governor, the party would have done better during this election?
Of course, there's every possibility for a political party to do better when there are more hands working together, especially when you look at our political history. What happened to PDP similarly happened in 2014 when a group of governors, some members of the National Assembly, former governors, walked out of the party to support the then All Progressives Congress. It was one of the major contributors to the loss of their sitting president, who was a candidate of the party in 2015 presidential election. So the history seems to have repeated itself. Even though a lot of people want to discard the fact that G5 didn't make so much of impact on the eventual outcome of the election for the PDP. But the truth is that it would have been better rather for the party to have gone into that election more united, especially with the caliber of governors that are fighting against the party's leadership in that election, rather than the way it went into the election, thereby giving the kind of result the party got.
What do you think the future holds for the party in the face of these whole issues, multitude issues facing the party? What do you think the future holds for them?
Well, there's not no other way for the party to move forward, in my own opinion, other than stakeholders within the party, if it is still interested in governing, not even at federal level. And if you look at the crisis, it has gone deeper into fractions within the states. If you go to Rivers, if you go to some other states where the party is deeply polarized. So in moving forward, I think the party must begin to look at how it has fared since this crisis began and how it can work together if it's really interested in playing the role of the opposition, which it may likely play in the next coming years. Again, then it has to be a united front. You cannot play the role of an opposition where you have opposition within yourself, even as a political party. So the PDP has a lot of work to do. All
right, let's move to our final story for tonight. The newly elected governors received certificates of return issued by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, earlier in the week. They also listed their areas of priority, while some pledged to tackle insecurity, poverty, and unemployment. Others said they would instill transparency and accountability in governance. The All Progressive Congress won in 15 states, People Democratic Party 9, and Labour Party and the New Nigerian People's Party won 1 each. The re-elected governor of Oyo State, Engineer Seyi Makinde, said it was time to hit the ground running to redouble the efforts that would take Oyo State from poverty to prosperity. Rivers State Governor-elect Sim Fubara pledged that they would do everything within their power to live up to expectations by delivering on the mandate. In Kwara State Governor-elect Rahman Abdul-Razak has promised to continue his legacy projects and reforms across all sectors in the state. I still have with me to discuss this Olushola Jegede and as well Olufemi Lawson. Let me have your view on this. These governors made a lot of promises while they were receiving their certificate of return. What do you think is the greatest challenge Nigerian governors face today?
Well, the greatest challenge from coming from what we've seen generally in Nigeria has been about employment, insecurity. And now that we have new governors on board, and we have also noticed that there is a kind of a constitutional amendment also ongoing, that the President Buhari has recently signed about the 16th constitutional amendment, and that laws will empower some states in some areas, especially on power generations, and the constitutional amendment recently signed by the President has allowed that. We hope that with the new incoming governors in different states, there are now more grants for them to cover their areas of development, because if the development is ongoing, if the works of the government is going on a very serious level, the power has been generated, the jobs are going to be created automatically. Although it's not a direct job of any government to even be creating jobs. They are supposed to be creating jobs, enabling environment for businesses, for everybody to be able to create business. And we have seen the issue of a credit problem in Nigeria. There are a lot of Nigerians with small business ideas. They don't even have credit to push through those businesses. Most banks are not giving loans, as it is today in Nigeria. And a lot of the Western economies that all of us want to join easily, their economies are always very good, because a lot of them, they have easier model to kickstart business, to access credit and all that. All those were lacking in Nigeria. A lot of people with brilliant ideas, they have been kept to the same place because there's no way to fund those projects. We hope that the governors, they can be able to cooperate with the, of course, with the incoming president as well, and to see what they can do in their own domain to improve security, to build more infrastructures. When all those things are being done, more jobs are going to be created in the society, and that should be the focus of some of these governors that have been issued the certificate of return, in my mind. All
right, let me come to you, Olufemi Lawson. Looking at the tax ahead these governors, especially the area of the inherited debts within the states, what would you advise?
Well, a lot of those governors are inheriting those debts from themselves or their predecessors from their political party. And that is why it is often important that we take this responsibility and our expectations away from these individuals who have been elected to, making it a burden of responsibility for the political parties who they represent. You see, it is so unfortunate that a lot of times we look at these governors as being alpha and omega. Sometimes they start acting like sole administrators, forgetting that they are elected on the platform of political parties. The political parties and the citizens must have a clear-cut agenda, for these governors who have been elected on how our state should be governed. It is not enough for a governor to just wake up and begin to secure loans in the name of generations of citizens that are from the state. The party must be interested in what the governors are doing, how these funds that have been sourced are utilized. The citizens must also be interested. It is not enough for us to sit back and begin to wait for the end of these administrations and begin to hear these humongous amounts of monies that have been taken as loan by. So we must begin to look at not only repaying debts, as state governors or administrators of the various states. One of the ways out of this is to improve the productivity of these states. If we don't focus on productivity, if these states are not prosperous, we'll continue to see generation of leaders coming to run the states on the basis of debt, and debt. And I think we must begin to look beyond that now. How viable are these states to pay the debt? No. How viable are these states to begin to generate wealth, to make sure that we are not debtor states like we currently have all over the country today?
All right. I've been speaking with Olushola Jegede, lawyer, and Olufemi Lawson, Executive Director, Center for Public Accountability. So far, thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming on the show. And thank you as well for being part of the show. And that's our show for today. Remember, you can follow the conversation on our social media platforms at TVC News NG or on our website at tvcnews.tv. I am Jacinta Agochukwu. Until next week, it's goodbye.